Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to go over is finding minimal sample size, a minimum sample size. We did this in 6-1 when they gave us the population standard deviation, when they gave us sigma. They gave us this. I'll show you the formula in just a second. This is one of the most missed questions, though, on the Chapter 3 test. And I think it's because of this piece of information right here that people miss. All right, I'm going to highlight this right here. And they miss this part, and I'll explain what that means in just a second. But you can see down here when you come down to the questions, it's pretty plain. The question reads, you're running a campaign, you want a confidence interval. I mean, it very plainly says that this is a confidence interval. They want you to predict what the population proportion will be based on this sample that you have. They tell you right here what your margin of error is, and here's the question: find the minimum sample size. So when it says find the minimum sample size, you should look up on your formula sheet. Well, here's the problem. It says find the minimal sample size, and this is what your formula sheet is going to look like. This is your formula sheet. I will be sure I put this in the resources for you. But here's your chapter 6. There's your chapter 5 formula sheet. It's really short and sweet. And then here is your chapter 6 formula sheet. And if you'll notice, you've got this minimum sample size, and then you've got this minimum sample size. Okay, well, the difference is this minimum sample size is used to estimate a mean of a population. This minimum sample size is used to estimate the proportion of the population. So look at what you have to have in order to calculate your minimum sample size. You have to have a z-score. Well, you have to have a z-score in both of these. You have to have a margin of error. You have to have a margin of error in both of these. You square something in both of these. So part of this is the same. So what's different? What's different in each one of these formulas is this one, you have to know sigma. What you have to know right there is you have to know in order to estimate the mean, you have to know the population standard deviation. That has to be given. They have to provide that for you. And this one, you have to know your proportion and the proportion of your successes and the proportion of your failures for your sample. This one right here, you have to know your sample successes and failures. Okay, you don't know a population standard deviation. So that's the main thing. So you go back over here and you look at your problem and you see, okay, so here, this is my confidence interval. So this is my value of C, and my value of C is 0.95, so I need my ZC right there. And I can look that up on my Z table. Must be accurate within, there's that keyword right there, within 3%. That means this is my margin of error. My margin of error is 0.03. So they've given me that. And then it says find the minimum sample size is needed. And here's the key: no preliminary estimate is available. That means they're not even going to give you the value of P and Q. Well, that's what you do. That's when you pay attention to this right here. It says, hey, if they don't tell you what P and Q are, then you let P be 0.5 and you let Q be 0.5. You let it be 50-50. So for problem number 1 of this problem, when they do not give you P and Q, P hat and Q hat are not given, then you just let them both be 0.5. Let P hat equal 0.5 and Q hat equal 0.5. And remember, that means half of the people said yes, half of the people said no, or half of the people were in favor, half of the people declined, or half of the people agreed and half of the people disagreed, whatever the situation was. So then you're just going to calculate this minimum sample size would be 0.5 times 0.5, because that's p hat q hat, times the z-score. The z-score, we forgot to look that up, so let me go real quick. It's a 95% confidence interval, so 95 is 1.96. Do you see the 1.96 for 95%? So that's 1.96. So 1.96, that was 1.96. And divide that by my margin of error, which is 0.03, and you square that. Okay, so type that into whatever calculator that you're using, and I believe that comes out to be, now don't forget, this is very much like the other one. And on the other one, it says so right here, always round up to the next whole number. If n is not a whole number, round up. So it comes out to be a decimal. I don't remember what the decimal is, but I'm going to round up to 1,068 voters. That's how many I need, VOTERS. I need 1,068 voters in order to get a 95% confidence error with a margin of error, a 95% confidence interval with a margin of error of 0.03. Anything smaller, and I will not have this kind of error, or I will not have that kind of confidence. Now, part 2 here, they do give us the p-values. So here they give us the p-values. So if p hat is 0.31, then we calculate q hat to be 1 minus 0.31, and I believe that is 0.69. And so we can calculate n by saying 0.31 times 0.69 times, and we're going to do 1.96 again. Still have a margin of error of 3. We square those two, type all of that into your calculator, always round up, and you get 914 voters. Okay, it says right there, round up, round to the next whole number. No matter what the decimal value is, you always round up. Because if you had one fewer voters, it wouldn't be enough to have this margin of error with this confidence interval. Okay, so just real quick, I'm going to show you that I have a couple of things that I'm going to load for you. In chapter 6, I have a quiz. It's not going to be a quiz, but it has some sample questions. These are questions that you could see on the test, especially since I could probably, these did come from the test generator, and that test generator, I think I can connect it to StatCrunch. No, not StatCrunch, but my Stat Lab, and I think it will write those questions. So this is very likely what I will do since they are already written. So something like this, and I could turn these into multiple choice, but I could also leave them for response. So it would be a good thing, and the answers are included. So it'd be a good thing to practice those. This is all of chapter 6. I also have one that's just over sample sizes, because for whatever reason, this is like the most missed question on that test. So and as you can see, I got this from Dr. Parker. I didn't even create this one myself. This is what she saw to be important. So I'll have to go back and look and see if I have the stuff from chapter 5, like the extra stuff from chapter 5 loaded. Again, this is not anything that I'm going to require you to do. I'm just showing you that you can do it. It's just extra practice. So remember that your homework is what you're required to do. You'll have those things that I'm going to upload into Blackboard to do a little bit extra if you want. And all of that should get you ready for your next test.